The comparisons in the last lesson are pretty good if you just want to return back string values depending on what happens with this condition, if it gets met or not. But what if you wanted to go a little bit further and actually execute some code depending on a condition? And this is where conditional statements come in. And this gives you the ability to set a value. So we could do a check of the condition by using if. And we could do the same thing as we're doing up here. So same type of condition, same type of idea, but we execute some code with that. So we could do something where we've got a variable. So let's try a variable of C. Let's just declare C for now. And I could say something like, if x is equal to y, C is equal to true. We're going to do it along the same lines as what we've got up here. And then I'm going to have a console message out here of the value of C. And you're probably looking at this and saying, okay, well, if it's true, then it returns back this. But what happens if this condition isn't true? Where do we find the false? So this is where we can add in the else. And we can say C is equal to false if it's not true, which makes sense when you read through it. And we see that the value is false. So it's essentially doing the same thing that we've got over here. So if I remove that out and if we refresh that, so it's doing the same thing that we've got happening over here. But of course, this is a lot longer, and typically if you just want to return back a string value, if you want to update it, then you could do it this way. But let's take this now a little bit further and add something. So we could do something like x, and we can equal x plus 5,000. And then maybe we can do that check again and really begin to build out all of these different conditions. So we can have this condition now, and now x is going to equal x plus 5,000. So we're executing some code and we're getting some more dynamic capabilities depending on if a condition is met or not. So we can increase x, and we can do any number of different functionalities here as well. So we can do our console log, and it can say, wow, x is not true, or x is true or equal to. So we could do something like that. We can output in the console. Let's update x there. We'll go out and refresh it. So we can see that we can do any number, execute any block of code, and we can get really complex with this as well. And there's also one other thing we can do as well. So we can say, we can check to see if these values are true, and I can also add in another if condition here. So I can add in another one that will say else if, and here we can do another check to see if a condition is being met. So just add in the condition there. That's going to beautify that so we can see it a little bit better. And let's take this one where we're going to say if x is greater than y, then we're going to say output something here and beautify that again. So that's just a function within brackets. And here I'm going to update the console that to say x is greater than y. So now we have some real logic that's being applied. We're going to run through and we're going to see if x is equal to y. If it's absolutely, even the type is equivalent, then we're going to run this. And if this condition doesn't come up true, then we're going to move on to the next one. And it's going to check to see if x is greater than y. And if it is, then it's going to output whatever the value for this set of code gets returned. And if none of these come out true, then it's finally going to get to the last one. And if none of them are true, then it's going to come back as false. And let's refresh that, and we see that we get returned back as false. And this is because the types are different. So we're looking for the comparison of the types, and we're not matching that. So that's why it's returning back false. So we could also see that if x was greater than y, so if x was 575, let's take a look now and see what happens. We see x is greater than y, and we're actually not defining anything for c, so we could add that in as well and have a definition for c, and we've got x is greater than y. So in the next lesson, we're going to look at even more options here if we've got multiple possibilities. So you can build out these else statements, but there's also an option to do a switch. So we can look for a particular value in a variable and output conditions depending on what the value is. And these are what switches are, and I'm going to look at those. We're going to take a look at those within the next lesson. So that's coming up.